We are speaking with 3rd District Congressman Adrian Smith this morning and discussing a number of things going on in Washington. We're coming up to the election, but right now the biggest thing, I guess, in the news is whether we should have any sanctions in regards to Saudi Arabia and the slaying of the Washington Post journalist. What's your thoughts as you listen to all the rhetoric and the debate regarding this?
Well, it's certainly a very serious issue. That a journalist would go missing, originally like was observed. But fact of the matter is we need to get to the bottom of this, and I think we need to take this and treat it as a very serious issue and address it accordingly, once we have all the information. But I think there is a lot of agreement of how serious this issue is.
So you may have heard of my news, Mr. Sass, saying that we should also include arms sales to Saudi Arabia as well, and any sanctions we include. Do you have any? What are the thoughts right now in D.C. as to what sanctions there would be in regards to this?
We've been out of session since this has come to the forefront, so there hasn't been much discussion among colleagues. I think that we need to keep our options on the table and look at and see what, and take the information and then take the appropriate action.
Yeah. Don't feel there's enough information right now to really say they're responsible? I
would be more comfortable with more information. And certainly there's a lot of speculation and there's some evidence that is being compiled. So let's take that and make the appropriate and more information as well, and make the appropriate decisions from there.
Okay. We were hoping we might have a farm bill by now, but that hasn't happened. What's been the holdup?
Well, there's an impasse. I was very encouraged, throughout the summer and even into September that we could get this done on time. But there's an impasse. Reports are that the impasse is on 3 or 4 different topics. I'm going to guess that it's really about the nutrition title and food stamps. And I think that we need, I don't expect one issue to become a deal breaker. I would prefer to avoid one issue becoming a deal maker or breaker within the broad context of the Farm Bill. Covers a lot of topics. Crop insurance is in a very strong position. Other things that I think are good for agriculture in a strong position. Obviously, the nutrition title, being the most expensive title, the most dollars involved, is included with the rest of the Farm Bill because it does involve food. And we have some work requirements in the House version, and Chairman Conaway is working to include those. And I think that it's important that this approach be in there, be in the final version of the Farm Bill, because we've got a lot of issues right now in terms of the workforce. We have workforce shortages. We have shortages of plumbers, electricians, and others, computer technicians. A lot of areas all around the country are needing more employees. And so when you look at the numbers on food stamps, the last time the economy was similar to what it is today was in the year 2000. We had roughly 17 million Americans on food stamps then, and today we have almost 40 million folks on food stamps. And so we need to address this, and I think, and I'm hopeful that there can be a compromise in addressing this, realizing that we need to work together. We have literally millions of Americans on the sidelines of our economy, and we have job openings right now. We have 7 million just men aged 24 to 54 who are not working, and they're not looking for work, and they're considered able to work. We have, from another study, about 5 million men and women aged 16 to 24 who are not in school, and they're not working. And so I've introduced legislation to reform some of our programs, to engage states, to really target their efforts toward getting folks to leave the sidelines of our economy and engage in a substantive way to get that job, keep that job, and really look for greater opportunity along the way. So that's why I've introduced legislation to address that. I hear from Nebraskans up and down the district that they need employees. they can have a stronger business as a result. And it's a challenge finding employees right now.
So would your legislation maybe, if people are going to get assistance, they have to at least be applying for jobs, looking for work?
Right. Well, we have some work activity requirements currently on the books. That tends to involve a lot of box checking. What we are wanting to do is focus on the outcome of actually getting the job and keeping the job rather than just applying for a job. And certainly given the economy what it is today, there's a lot of room to do that. In 2008, 2009, things were different. That it's much different now than at that point. So we want to still allow states a great deal of flexibility, which my bill does. Universal engagement with case management. That is in my bill as well. Right now, we only have case managers on 50% of the folks on TANF, the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families. And so we want to include everyone so that everyone can work with a case manager. There tends to be much greater success as a result. That's what research shows. And so that's what is included as well.
Is that bill in committee right now, is it?
It's actually out of committee. It's out of the Ways and Means Committee. And so I would imagine we'll have to start over here with a new Congress. But fact of the matter is these are areas that need to be worked on, and there's no greater opportunity to fix this than right now. I would say even in the history of our country, to get folks engaged in the economy so that they can experience and benefit from the prosperity of a growing economy as well.
Yeah. So if you have to start over with the new Congress, does it go back to committee again, or it's out?
Right. Yeah. No. We would have to start over with committee again. But we've had some great opportunities for hearings along the way about the workforce, and so this is very important as we do move forward and truly address the needs of our country, because in Nebraska, we didn't see the huge dip in the economy from 2008 like other states did. Certainly, we had our challenges, but we didn't see the huge spike in unemployment like other states did. And so we've had a shortage of employees, I would say, for some time now. But this is everywhere now. I mean, it's coast to coast, north to south, and all regions of our country. To where we'd like to see more manufacturing in the U.S., but we need employees to fill those vacancies. The numbers say we have about 7 million job vacancies as we speak, and I've had employers in the 3rd District here tell me that their number one barrier to growth is human resources and being able to fill those jobs. And this spans the skill spectrum as well. We have employers willing to put new employees on the payroll and train and pay for their training, so that these individuals aren't left having to go into debt perhaps to get a training certificate or something and come back a year later without getting paid, but having to pay for the training as well. Things are different now. Employers are telling me that they would actually prefer to hire the individual and train them, tailor the training specifically for that individual and for that company, rather than saying, hey, go get some training and come back next year.
Okay. So you think your bill, once it starts over again next year, will have a good chance of moving through, and
I think
once the election's over and the politics of it? Right.
There is a great deal of bipartisan interest in the approaches in my bill. Very interested in the focus of these dollars going to the folks most in need. Some flexibility as it relates to child care and transportation. But we do hold the dollars firm from what they have been. So we have not grown the spending in my bill, which a lot of the Democrats don't like that. But we have a good amount of resources to work with here. But let's apply them in a more cost-effective and more efficient manner, and we can help more people get them back into the workforce. This would be good for taxpayers, incidentally. It would be good for employers, but most importantly, it would be good for the individuals themselves who can benefit more directly and more personally from the growth of our economy.
And how much is the A bill on this?
I would need to get back to you on that with the exact dollars, but
Yeah.
it is holding firm at the same level that we've had for a few years now. But there would be, I think, a much more measured approach in terms of how these dollars are being used.
Okay. Farm bill, are we going to get it done in the interim, but after the election, before that?
I think so. There's a strong desire to not leave producers out wondering, what it's going to be like. And so far, even though there is a bit of a delay, I don't think it's been an imposition for producers themselves. But we need to get this done and on the books and move forward. Trade is a very important topic these days. We've made great advancements with renegotiating and modernizing NAFTA. Now we see some advancements in trade with Japan. I was very glad to see President Trump sit down with Prime Minister Abe from Japan to discuss a trade agreement with Japan. Japan is a huge economy. We would like more market access in Japan, and there's room for us to get more market access. They've got a great deal of access to our market, and we want the same in their market. They have a 40-some% tariff on some U.S. beef. That shows an opportunity that we can take advantage of to reduce that tariff so that more of our products would be more affordable to the Japanese people. We see, I think there's some momentum on resolving some of these trade disagreements, and I think that we want to utilize that momentum in an appropriate way. I was glad to introduce a resolution last year calling for the initiation of a trade agreement with Japan. So now we're starting to see that to happen, and that's a really good thing.
China, you think that'll?
Well,
I would imagine we'll do Japan first and then move to China, although there is some talk. Mostly just barbs between the two countries so far. But
other countries around the world, they know that China is their trade practices aren't fair. And quite honestly, I don't like tariffs. I think tariffs ultimately undermine economic growth. They hurt consumers. The question is, how long will China go, for their people having to pay more for their food? Well, that doesn't make sense either. And yet that's what they are doing with their retaliation on placing tariffs on our agriculture products. So I think it's ultimately in China's interest to get squared around and level the playing field on steel and aluminum. I think folks know that President Trump is very serious about this, and he's been very firm. In fact, I would characterize it as doubling down on numerous occasions rather than backing off. And so he's very serious about this, and I hope that we can get this resolved sooner rather than later. And I think the momentum that we have, in the fact that Canada, for example, made some concessions on updating NAFTA, that's a good sign that they need the access to our markets and our consumers, and so President Trump is leveraging that. I think that in the broader context is appropriate. We want better trade policy. And so I hope we can work together to get that done. This updated NAFTA will now need a vote of Congress. So there's a time frame for that will take us into the next Congress before that would ultimately be approved by both houses, the House and the Senate.
Okay. The elections, want to make any predictions on how many seats will be won or lost? Well,
I'll tell you what, I just talking to conservatives and moderates and swing voters, they are much more engaged. I think the Kavanaugh situation really woke a lot of folks up, and I think that people are paying more attention now. I think that's good. We want to see high voter turnout. I think that's healthy for our country, healthy for our nation, and so. The issues, there are a lot of issues that are out there. I'd prefer certainly to serve in the majority. It is a lot more work, I will add, just to serve in the majority and be responsible for governance. But it is something that I didn't like what happened when we were in the minority for 4 years. We saw the growth of government in ways that are really hard to turn around. And so I know that Nancy Pelosi really wants to be Speaker again. And so she's fighting hard. She's raising a lot of money, outraising money big time, outraising Republicans in terms of fundraising. And all said, it's a sign of a strong democracy and republic as we are when we see the vibrance of a party out of power. That vibrance is very clear. Now, I disagree with the Democrats on a lot of issues, but the vibrance is certainly there. And so I hope that we can kind of get things to settle down here and really move forward in a thoughtful way and address these issues that need to be addressed, like bringing folks off the sidelines of our economy so that they can experience the prosperity of a growing economy.
All right. Okay, very good. Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
You bet.